All right, we'll get back to Rada here in a moment. What an interesting morning we are having. And I initially wanted to talk to Winston Peters this morning about the Moana case because I saw some social posts he made on this online and thought, that is very interesting. So we will talk with him about that. But also he's giving his State of the Nation this afternoon. And I'm also interested for him to give us a sneak peek, a look under the hood at that before he goes online. He joins us by video link now. Mr. Peters, welcome back to the platform. Nice to have you with us.
Good morning.
Look, I thought your social media posts on the Moana case, and I'll be honest, I feel the platform somewhat dropped the ball. Michael Laws has covered it a bit. But it is such a tragic story and a story of our times of how bureaucracy and, to my mind, political correctness have really damaged an individual's life or shot at life. Can you give us a thumbnail for those who aren't aware of the story? What's happened to Moana, how the story's run so far?
Well, a young girl from a family that was then 3 siblings and herself, but now she has another sibling, all of which children have been taken off their mother, not once but a number of times, I understand, and was put with a European family. She happens to be a Maori background. And after 5 years with that family, apparently in an extraordinary happy circumstance, she's been taken off that family because the mother has taken the matter to court using what funds I wouldn't know, backed by Oranga Tamariki, and they cannot go on any further in terms of fighting the legal battle. And as they said, it was the saddest decision they had to make, but they couldn't carry on to now head off to the Court of Appeal trying to defend cases which they've already won.
Yeah, and they have. That's the amazing legal thing. Court after court after court has said the best thing for Moana, who turned up at her foster parents with a untreated club foot and rotting teeth, the best thing is for her to stay with her foster parents all the way to the Court of Appeal.
It's breathtaking. It's absolutely breathtaking here. Look, as a former lawyer, we know that when you're dealing with children and this matter, it's the child's interest that's the most important thing. Then from a Maori perspective, a child is meant to be a taonga, a treasure, and the very reverse was happening here in the circumstances where she should have been looked after. And a European family steps up and takes her on with love and affection, and an interfering system seeking to impose their views, their judgments on how the world should be. In short, what they're saying is this only Maori can bring up a Maori child like this, even though the very society from which she came, in this case, had rejected her. You see the parallel here? It is so arrogant now that their idea of imposing their new woke world view doesn't concern the child's happiness. It just concerns the prescription and parenthesis they wish to put around their lives. I know it sounds complicated, but this child was being loved and looked after. What more could a child want?
Yeah. And
she would have got to her Maori background told her over the years, but they're not interested in that. And they just rammed this down this sad family's throat, using the taxpayers' money, of course. When Oranga Tamariki lines up at the court, it's using your money in circumstances which, in my view, is utterly indefensible. It's disgraceful.
All right. And I guess what we can hope is the media and others keep an eye on what's happened to Moana and whether or not she actually has a happy life. And certainly the chances of that are reduced, aren't they?
Well, what's sad about that, though, is the poor child is now going to be the focus of a sort of a live test or experiment as to whether this works. I can say it at the time when all this information, when all these policy changes came into Parliament, they came with no empirical evidence that they would work at all. It was all anecdotal, and it was all based on bias. Maori children must play with Maori families. Now that, if that's the case, means that all over the world you can't have adoptions, you cannot have circumstances where somebody steps up to fill the gap of parental loss. No, it's just an imposition of a very tight, Marxist-type dictatorship in how life should be.
Right.
And it's happening in the country, and the taxpayers are paying for it.
All right. Is that the only thing that's worrying you at the moment, or have you got more to say about the state of the nation?
You know something, it's very much like a circumstance my father went into town and bought a dog and brought it home to the beach where we had a lot of rabbits. This dog came out at the back towards the sea to do his job, and all of a sudden one rabbit went by, and he started after that, and the other rabbit went by, he started after that, and after about 10 minutes he was so bewildered by everything going on that he just sat there in total frustration. And today, when you look at New Zealand politics, everywhere you look, it's disaster after disaster after disaster. So is that just what is concerning me? No. I'm really concerned that we're at an inflection point, and we either win this time. That by winning, I mean it's not just our turn, it's not just do the alternative, but we start fixing up the fundamental things of this country that have gone wrong. I heard the teachers on this morning about, for example, education. We used to be in the first 1, 2, or 3. We're not in the first 10 in anything when it comes to education. And still they're arguing that these changes are justified. No, they're not. We've got to get back to be where we once were with a much smaller population.
Well, I thought the Nats came up yesterday, Winston, with a pretty simple and straightforward policy. Let's start at the beginning at primary school and intermediate. Let's teach kids how to read, write and do arithmetic. I kind of liked it for its simplicity. And I liked it because all the teacher unions hated it, which means it's probably a good idea, isn't it?
Well, no, that's a sad approach to take. I want to know what the parents think, and I think the parents would like it. Now, I don't know about the National Party's policy says, but I'm referring to my speech, and I wrote the speech yesterday anyway, as to what needs to happen here. And what I'm concerned about is that you've got to give students the basic tools at a young age to go in terms of upward mobility, in terms of economic earnings, in terms of the country's preparedness for the new future as far as they possibly can. And we are denying so many children that. And just to make sure that our system does not work, and I do not see these teachers and headmasters screaming and protesting, probably got up to in some schools, 60% truancy. If you don't understand what that means, then this country's stuffed. So to speak.
All right. Winston, the other... Yeah?
Look, you won't believe this, but in 1877, that's 1877, in a parliament where nobody had ever seen a university, they decided that education should be compulsory in New Zealand. That's a long time ago.
150 years, yeah.
We can't even understand how critical that is.
Yeah. Winston, one of the issues that's been kicking around this week is a woman who wants to come here and speak about, well, women's rights. Our mainstream media have branded her a Nazi and a transphobe or a TERF or whatever that is. They haven't bothered speaking to her. And we now have politicians and mayors whipping out or encouraging counter-protest, indeed, and legal action against the government over here. I've looked at this as a free speech issue, not necessarily a sexuality or anything issue. Do you have any views on Posey Parker and whether or not men can have babies?
Well, I don't have extensive views on her because I only heard of her just recently when the controversy came up in Australia. But the point is, a lot of things they're saying about her are just deliberate lies. I know that much. That some of the connections they say that she's got, they are deliberate lies. But that's not the point. My point is, this is a country that has free speech. If you don't like what she's saying, don't listen. Don't go.
Yeah.
But what you've got a cancel culture in this country at the moment, not just on this matter, on in many matters. If they don't like what they're saying, or you're saying, they want to shut you down.
Yeah.
We're not going to have that sort of Marxist dictatorship in this country. Yeah. Free speech is important. You've got a right to say something that other people don't agree with. It's the essence of freedom. Yeah. And some of these people who are seeking to shut this sort of debate down are trying to do it in terms of the causes they espouse, when in very fact the only reason why they've got a cause that they espouse is because we live in a free society. That
gave them the chance to have their free speech as well. Yeah. Winston, just looking at recent political polls, and I guess, and I'm going to call it the mainstream narrative because they all get together and say, oh gosh, the Maori Party is going to hold the balance of power and Labour will therefore win. It does look like the woke to bloke strategy, the dumping of Jacinda Ardern, replacing her with Hipkins, has worked to a certain extent for Labour in terms of reconnecting somewhat with the middle ground New Zealand voter. National continues, it seems to me, to fight over that middle ground with them. and we do appear to be developing into something of, I don't know, we're kind of stuck or locked with the Maori Party potentially holding the balance of power. At the moment, you're not polling it as a position where you'd get in. How do you intend to change that?
Well, in some polls you may be right, in other polls you're wrong. And we haven't started yet. We're starting this afternoon in Howick. So we've delayed this because of, first of all, we predicted that the Prime Ministership was going to change, that Jacinda would walk away. Mm-hmm. And also, but we couldn't predict the Cyclone Gabriel. And those things meant about clear air. This is a very good timing. But here's the point. Any political scientist who thinks that this is going to happen is not a political scientist's backside. That's simple.
Yeah.
Really. I'm sick and tired of people saying if, we got it wrong. If, we got it wrong. It happened decade after decade. What we know about New Zealand First, we're making a comeback and nothing's going to stop us because we stand for the right things. We're making reconnections with people and people begin to understand that they need a party called New Zealand First that's actually nationalist, believes in conservatism with a human face and believes in core values that are important to New Zealand. That's going to be the clear of this election.
Winston, the State of the Nation, when and where? If people want to go.
Vincent Street Presbyterian Church in Howick. Vincent Street Presbyterian Church in Howick at 2 p.m. this afternoon.
I'd love to say we'd stream it live, but Martin Devlin won't give up his sports time for it. I'm sorry. How long is it going to be?
It'll be exactly about 40 minutes and then question time. 40
minutes question. Look, I'll see if I can get the first 20. You're live streaming it somewhere so we can pick it up?
Yes, we are.
Okay, here's the deal. I'll live stream it if you give me a little peek under the hood. Tell me something you're saying that you haven't said yet.
Oh, no, I'm not going to do that. I'll tell you why.
Come on. It's a good deal.
All of your colleagues will say, Winston, you traitor, you wouldn't give us the stuff, and now you get it to the platform. You know how you guys are.
Oh, it was worth the crack, Winston. It really was. Look, good luck for your State of the Nation today. Thank you very much for highlighting that Moana story. Whether you're a politician or not, as a New Zealander, you've just got to weep when you read it.
I tell you what, I was sickened by it.
Yeah.
And I had a chat with some of my close colleagues, and they said that we cannot believe this is happening. You know, something must not be true, but it was. So
yeah.
It was so sickening, and I did not think that the level of outrage from the mainstream media was there at all.
They were busy hunting Nazis, Winston. But a big shout out to Marty Sharp, the guy from Stuff who wrote the story. He wrote it bloody well.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah. Hey, thank you, Winston. Good luck for the speech this afternoon. Sorry, we can't carry it live. Sport's more important. That is.
You might come to your senses by then.
We'll see. Winston Peters, the leader of New Zealand First, ahead of his State of the Nation speech.